Yeah, hi there. It's Thursday morning, the 30th of July, and I'd just like to talk about uh, the economic crisis in terms of the old order. And I think that people should be aware we are never going back to that order. Not certainly for another generation anyway. And by that I mean 10, 15, 20 years. There will never be a repeat of what went on 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. We had this cheap credit and people over borrowing and getting into massive indebtedness. And the reason I say that is because, um, you know, we, I, I think we're badly served by our economists in the world. And I think that they've brought their whole profession, a large number of them have brought their profession into disrepute. Uh, you've only got to look in recent history to see a country, a massive industrial company, that was a country that was beset with by exactly the same set of problems as besets us here in Ireland now, and also the United States. And that was Japan in the early 90s. And what happened was Japan in the early 90s went through an extraordinary uh, asset bubble. Huge bubble blew up around property and equities in Japan. That's the property market. It was commercial property and also private property, and in terms of just ordinary houses, and also commercial development, uh, and also in the equity market and various aspects of the equity market. And it all came tumbling down in 1990. And before, up until the period of 1990, Japan was a massive debtor nation. Uh, that's as a country and also internally as people inside the country. The people were heavily overborrowed, and they were uh, involved, as I say, obviously they were involved in all sorts of speculative enterprises. And when the bubble burst, it didn't take them very long to realize that this was not a sustainable route to go for. When we're talking about a country of 127 million people, so this is a big, it's the second most powerful industrial country in the world after the United States. Now we find a situation where the economists would tell us that Japan is a basket case and it doesn't do well. It doesn't read well in terms of its GDP, and it doesn't read well in terms of its external borrowings, etc., and various aspects of it in terms of its productive capacity. But internally in Japan, the ordinary people are no longer have the level of indebtedness that they had in 1980. A lot of people in Japan don't even use banks. A lot of people in Japan don't have credit cards. The vast majority of the people who are in Japan are now net creditors. They actually are in a plus situation vis-a-vis their indebtedness. They don't have any indebtedness, personal indebtedness. They want to buy a plasma TV, or if they want to buy something, they save up for it. Now, big capital doesn't like that because they don't make any money out of that. And you must remember, if you go into a shop, any shop anywhere in the world, and you want to buy an object which is marked X, and you have the money in your back pocket, you can negotiate a price less than X for it. You can't do that if you're going to borrow money to buy that object. So we find ourselves in a situation today where a country has gone through this. Now, this is 19 years ago this happened, so this is almost a generation. And the equity market in Japan and the property market in Japan has never recovered. They have never ever gone back to the levels that they were in the 1980s, anywhere near them. And I think we can expect the same here in Ireland and in the United States. This is a worldwide Western phenomenon based on indebtedness. And every corporation and every person in the world and every company in the world should be about the business of deleveraging, should be about the business of getting rid of its indebtedness. And that's what we must address here in Ireland. every person that's in Ireland must make a serious attempt to get rid of indebtedness and not to be borrowing money. The next thing that I'd like to talk about is our unemployment rate. And we're told that by September, October of this year here in Ireland, there is going to be 520,000 people unemployed. Now, there are 4.2 million people live in Ireland, and of those 4.2 million, approximately 2.3 million represent the employable pool. The number of people that can actually be employed. The rest are children, old age pensioners, and students. So we only have 2.2 to 2.3 million people who can be employed. And we're going to end up in Ireland in September, October, November, that period, where there's going to be 520,000 people unemployed. Now that's 1 out of every 4 approximately. So that means every time you see 8 houses somewhere, you see 8 houses. On average, of course, it's not going to happen so much in the middle class and the upper classes, but certainly in the working class areas, it's going to mean decimation. And the third thing that I'd like to talk about is what the social impact of all this is. I think the social impact of all this is going to be catastrophic on a small country like ours. I think the level of crime on the street is going to skyrocket. I think the level of crime in housing estates, in working class housing estates, and in areas where there's total disenfranchisement will just be out of all proportion. I think that in terms of our government, the only thing that is going for our government in real terms is that our youth are totally and utterly apolitical. They don't seem to have any radical consciousness at all. And I think that's a manifestation of their whole social culture. But I live not far from a university town here with a large campus in it, and I see how large numbers of these young people behave on Friday and Saturday nights, and just their whole, as I say, the whole manifestation of their social culture. I find that these are the people who are going to take over this state within 10 or 15 years and start running it. And these are the social elite. I'm talking about people who are involved in third level education, young children who are involved in third level education, from middle class families and from upper class families. And their whole abiding interest seems to be narcissism, body abuse through tattooing their bodies, piercing their bodies, and drug taking and alcohol abuse. And so I think if there's going to be a reaction to any of this whole social malaise and this economic malaise that's affecting Ireland at the moment, it won't come from our youth. I think essentially they're degenerate to a large extent, and I don't think it augurs well for the future.